The War Council chamber stood silent as the holographic display showed another system falling to the Varaxian Empire. High Counselor Vexter watched the red markers spread across the star map like a disease. His scaled hands gripped the edge of the command table. Around him, representatives from 12 different species shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The Varaxians have taken the Outer Rim, Vexter said, his voice carrying the weight of countless defeats. 3 of our fleets have been destroyed. The insectoids show no signs of stopping. Ambassador Hai-Jin Lee sat quietly at the far end of the table. She was human, a species that had joined the Galactic Coalition only 3 years ago. Her dark eyes watched the other delegates with calm patience. She knew what was coming. "We need the humans," said Admiral Quintara, her aquatic form rippling in the specialized water tank that served as her seat. "There is no other choice." The room erupted in nervous chatter. Humans had a reputation. In the short time since first contact, they had already fought in 4 major engagements. Each time, they had done things that made the other species deeply uncomfortable. General Crix slammed his armored fist on the table. "The humans are dangerous. Yes, they win battles. But at what cost? They are predators who enjoy violence." Hai-Jin finally spoke, her voice soft but clear. "We do not enjoy violence, General. We are simply very good at it." Vexter raised a hand for silence. "Let us review the facts. 3 months ago, Helios Station came under attack. The Varaxians sent 2,000 warriors. We had only 200 human marines defending the station. The siege lasted 6 days. The holographic display changed, showing footage of the battle. The other delegates had seen it before, but it still made them uncomfortable. Human soldiers fought with a ferocity that seemed impossible. When wounded, they kept fighting. When surrounded, they laughed and made jokes. When their ammunition ran out, they used knives and bare hands. Not a single human retreated, Vexter continued. They held every corridor, every room. By the end, only 40 humans remained alive. But the station did not fall. The Varaxians lost over 1,500 warriors and fled. "It is not natural," muttered a delegate from the Pelthian collective. "Our soldiers would have surrendered. Any rational being would have surrendered." Hai-Jin smiled slightly. "Humans do not surrender easily. It is not in our nature." Captain Jiwon Park stood near the back of the chamber, observing the discussion. She was a liaison officer, responsible for coordinating between human forces and Coalition command. She had spent 2 years trying to help the aliens understand humanity. It was not an easy task. The problem was that humans evolved differently. They came from a death world, a planet where almost everything could kill them. They learned to hunt by chasing prey for hours until it collapsed from exhaustion. They learned to fight through pain that would kill most species. They learned to work together in ways that seemed almost telepathic to outsiders. "There is another concern," Admiral Quintara said carefully. "Humans form emotional bonds with extreme ease. They become attached to other species, to animals, even to machines. This makes them unpredictable. It also makes them loyal," Hai-Jin responded. "When humans consider you part of their pack, they will die to protect you. Is that not valuable in an ally?" Vexter nodded slowly. "The decision is made. We will deploy human forces to the Talon Nebula. Captain Park, please inform your command." Guan bowed slightly and left the chamber. As she walked through the corridors of the Coalition headquarters, she thought about what was coming. The Talon Nebula was a death trap. 3 different species had already tried to hold it. All had failed. The Varaxians were too numerous, too aggressive, too willing to die for their cause. But humans understood sacrifice. They understood fighting when there was no hope. It was what they did best. She reached her office and activated the secure communication console. The call connected to Earth Command, where Commander Taemin Choi appeared on the screen. He looked tired. Human forces were stretched thin across multiple fronts. "The Coalition wants us at Talon Nebula," Jiwon said without preamble. Taemin sighed. "How bad is it?" "Very bad. 3 Coalition forces have already been pushed back. The Varaxians control most of the system. How many troops are they giving us?" "They are giving us nothing. They want us to take our forces and stop the Varaxians. Temin was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled, that dangerous smile that made aliens nervous. Tell them we accept. I will send the 3rd Marine Division. 5,000 soldiers. We will hold the line. Temin, be careful. The Varaxians outnumber us badly. They always do. We will manage. The call ended. Jiwan sat back in her chair, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility. She trusted Temin. She trusted all the human soldiers. They had never let her down. But this felt different somehow. Her console beeped with an incoming message. It was heavily encrypted, using codes she had never seen before. Her security clearance was high, but this was something else entirely. The message was short. Ghost protocol is active. Stand by for spec for insertion. Do not inform Coalition Command. Giwan stared at the screen. Specfer. She had heard rumors, whispers in classified briefings. Special forces units that operated beyond normal military structure. Units that did not officially exist. She had never received orders regarding Specfer before. As far as she knew, they had never been deployed in Coalition space until now. Giwan deleted the message and stood up. She looked out the window at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, human soldiers were preparing for another impossible battle. And somewhere else in the shadows where even she could not see, something else was preparing to move. The galaxy feared human soldiers. They had seen what humanity could do in open combat. They had watched in horror and awe as humans turned defeats into victories through sheer determination. But they had not seen everything. They had not seen what humanity kept hidden. They had not seen the weapons that moved in silence, the warriors who struck from nowhere. The operators who turned war into an art form, Colonel Junho Kim, stood in a briefing room on a classified station near Earth. Before him sat 6 soldiers in black armor. They wore no insignia, no names, no identification of any kind. They were ghosts, and they were about to go hunting. The Talon Nebula, Junho said quietly. Our Marines will deploy openly. The Coalition will watch them. The Varaxians will focus on them. And you will do what you do best. The 6 soldiers said nothing. They did not need to. They already knew their mission. Remember, Junho continued, the Coalition does not know you exist. They will not know you are there. You are shadows. You are whispers. You are the thing that makes the enemy afraid of the dark. Major Doyon Han stood up, his team rising with him. Understood, sir. When do we deploy? You are already late, Junho said with a slight smile. The war has already begun. The transport ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Talon Nebula system. Inside the lead vessel, Sergeant Minho Bay checked his rifle for the 3rd time. Around him, his squad prepared in silence. They had done this many times before. Coalition Forward Operating Base Sentinel came into view as the ships approached. It was a massive station built into an asteroid, bristling with weapons and shields. It looked impressive, but Minho knew appearances meant nothing. The Varaxians had already pushed Coalition forces back to this last defensive position. First time working with the Coalition? Asked Private Yuna Kim, one of the newer members of his squad. Second time, Minho replied. They mean well, but they think differently than we do. The transport docked, and the human Marines filed out. Immediately, Minho noticed the stairs. Aliens of various species watched them pass. Some looked hopeful. Others looked afraid. A few looked at the humans like they were dangerous animals being let out of cages. Fleet. Admiral Quintara waited at the main assembly area. Her water tank moved forward on mechanical legs, bringing her face level with the human officers. Commander Taemin Choi stepped forward and saluted. Marina Choi reporting with the 3rd Marine Division, he said formally. Welcome to Base Sentinel, Quintara replied. Her voice came through a translator, but Minho could hear the exhaustion in it. Your barracks are in Section 7. We will brief you on the tactical situation in 2 hours. The briefing was grim. The Varaxians controlled everything beyond the asteroid belt. They had superior numbers and were willing to trade lives at a ratio of 5-to-1. 3 Coalition species had tried to hold the line. All had been forced to retreat. General Crix. A member of an armored species that looked like walking tanks pointed at the map. The Viraxians attack in waves. They do not stop. They do not negotiate. They simply keep coming until we break. Then we will not break, Taman said simply. Crix snorted. Easy to say? We shall see how long your confidence lasts. 2 days later, Minho's squad was on patrol near the outer sensor line. It was supposed to be a quiet area. The Viraxians had not probed this section in weeks. That should have been a warning. Lieutenant Sujin Yoon walked beside Minho. She was the squad's combat medic. Small and quiet, but Minho had seen her carry wounded soldiers twice her size. Something feels wrong, she said softly. I know, Minho agreed. His instincts were screaming at him. The area was too quiet. No movement, no signals, nothing. Everyone spread out. Watch the flanks. The ambush came from 3 sides at once. Viraxian warriors burst from hidden positions, their insect-like bodies moving with terrifying speed. They were larger than humans, with blade-like arms and thick armor plating. There were at least 40 of them. Against 12 human soldiers, the Viraxians expected easy prey. They were wrong. Minho's squad reacted instantly. They had trained for this exact situation 1,000 times. Fire teams split and moved, covering each other. Grenades flew into the Viraxian positions. Rifle fire was precise and controlled. Fall back to the ridge, Minho shouted. Fighting retreat. They moved backward in pairs, never exposing themselves. The Viraxians charged forward, thinking they had the humans on the run. Instead, they walked into a prepared position. The humans had rigged the narrow path with explosives during their approach. It's a standard precaution that the Viraxians never thought to check for. The explosion killed 12 Viraxians instantly. The survivors hesitated, confused. That moment of confusion cost them. Yuna Kim, the youngest member of the squad, fired from an elevated position. Her shots took down 3 Viraxians in quick succession. Private Dayono threw a thermal charge that melted through a Viraxian's armor. The aliens began to panic. Then Sujin went down. A Viraxian blade had caught her in the side. She hit the ground hard. 3 coalition soldiers from another species were pinned down nearby, wounded and unable to retreat. They had been caught in the initial ambush. Minho made a decision. Cover me! He ran into the open, firing as he moved. Bullets sparked off Viraxian armor, but he aimed for the joints, the eyes, the weak points. He reached Sujin and dragged her behind cover. She was bleeding badly, her face pale. The others, she gasped, pointing at the coalition soldiers. You are hurt, Minho said. They will die, Sujin replied. She pulled out her medical kit with shaking hands. Go, I can treat myself. Minho swore in Korean and ran toward the trapped aliens. The Viraxians were converging on that position. It was suicide to go there. But humans did not leave allies behind. The next few minutes were chaos. Minho fought like a demon, using his knife when his rifle ran empty. Yuna provided cover fire, her accuracy keeping the Viraxians at bay. Daeyoon rigged more explosives on the fly, turning the battlefield into a death trap. By the time reinforcements arrived, the ambush was over. 28 Viraxian bodies lay scattered across the area. The human squad had lost no one. Sujin had treated herself and crawled to the coalition soldiers and saved all 3 of them, despite her own wounds. Admiral Quintara reviewed the combat footage in disbelief. They turned an ambush around, she said to General Crix. 12 soldiers against 40 enemies, and they won. I watched the medic, Crix replied, his voice troubled. She was injured, bleeding badly, but she ignored her pain to save our soldiers. She smiled at them while treating their wounds. How is this possible? They are human, Quintara said quietly. This is what they do. That evening, Minho and his squad sat in their barracks. They cleaned their weapons and checked their gear. They joked about the battle, laughing about close calls. Yuna made fun of Minho for his dramatic rescue run. Coalition observers watched through security cameras. Disturbed by the display, these humans had just fought a brutal battle. 3 of them were wounded. All of them had nearly died. Yet hours later, they acted like nothing had happened. "They're not sane," one alien officer said. "No," another replied. "They are simply human." Over the next week, the Varaxians increased their attacks. They used terror tactics, suicide bombers, in overwhelming numbers. They wanted to break the human spirit. It did not work. Human soldiers fought back with cold efficiency. They adapted to every Varaxian tactic. They turned enemy weapons against them. They held ground that should have been impossible to defend. Taman requested permission to conduct deep reconnaissance missions behind enemy lines. General Crix denied the request immediately. "It is suicide," Crix said firmly. "We do not send soldiers to their deaths." "Understood," Taman replied. But he did not look disappointed. He looked like he was expecting that answer. That night, Captain Juan Park received another encrypted message. This one was even shorter than the first. "Package delivered. Ghosts are active." Guan stood on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Somewhere in the dark between those stars, something was moving. Something the Coalition could not see. Something the Vraxians would never expect. 6 humans in black armor had slipped past every sensor, every patrol, every defensive line. They moved through space like they owned it. They were invisible, untraceable, and utterly lethal. Coalition Command did not know they were there. The Vraxians did not know they were there. Only a handful of humans knew the truth. The invisible war had begun. Giwan smiled slightly in the darkness. The galaxy thought they understood human soldiers now. They thought they had seen humanity's strength. They were wrong. They had only seen the beginning, Major. Doyan Han moved through the darkness of space with practiced ease. His black armor absorbed light and sensor waves, making him nearly invisible. Behind him, 5 other figures drifted silently toward the Varaxian command station. They had been traveling for 3 days, and no one knew they were here. "Thermal signatures detected," whispered Specialist Hannah Kwan through the encrypted team channel. 17 guards on the outer hull. "Patrol pattern is predictable." "Yunji, can you reach the maintenance airlock?" Doyan asked quietly. Corporal Yunji Shin floated into position 300 meters away. Through her rifle scope, she could see every detail of the station. "Affirmative. 2 guards. I have clean shots on both. Wait for my signal," Doyan said. This was their 3rd target in 10 days. The first 2 operations had gone perfectly. A Varaxian admiral and his entire staff died when their shuttle's life support mysteriously failed. A war priest who had been rallying troops for a major offensive had his head removed by a bullet from over 3 kilometers away. Both incidents looked like accidents or random attacks, but this target was different. This was a hardened military installation with hundreds of soldiers inside. Getting in would be nearly impossible. Getting out would be even harder. Sergeant Min-jae Kong worked on the station's external computer port. His fingers moved quickly across a small device that intercepted and decoded security protocols. "I am in their system," he reported. 30 seconds until I can override the airlock." 15 seconds, warned Corporal Jiwon Seung, watching the patrol routes. Guards approaching. Doyan made a decision. "Yunji, take them." 2 shots, so quiet they could barely be heard in the vacuum of space. 2 Varaxian guards dropped without a sound. The rest of the patrol did not notice. They never looked back at their fallen comrades. "Ilakope," Min-jae said. "We have 2 minutes before the system logs the anomaly." The team moved inside quickly. The airlock cycled silently, and they entered the station proper. Inside, the air was thick and warm, suited to Vraxian biology. The corridors were large and dimly lit. Hannah accessed a data port and uploaded a virus into the station's network. "Cameras are now on a loop. We are invisible to their security systems." They moved through the station like shadows. Every corner was checked. Every sound was identified. They encountered 3 Varaxian soldiers in a hallway. Before the aliens could react, Private Seojin Lee fired 3 times. The suppressed shots were barely louder than breathing. The Varaxians fell. "Command center is 2 levels up," Hannah reported, reading the station's layout through her wrist display. They climbed through maintenance shafts, avoiding the main corridors. Twice, They had to hide as large groups of Viraxians passed below them. The insects talked loudly, confident in their security. They never thought to look up. The command center was protected by a heavy security door and 12 guards. Minjay studied the entrance for 30 seconds. Then he placed small charges at specific points on the wall beside the door. Shaped charges, he explained quietly. They will cut through the wall without triggering alarms. The sound will be masked by the ventilation system. The charges detonated with soft thumps. A section of wall fell inward, creating an entrance away from the main door. The team flowed through before anyone inside could react. Admiral Cracksthal, the Viraxian fleet commander, looked up from his tactical display in shock. Doyon stood in front of him, rifle raised. Around the room, the other 5 members of Spec for Unit 7 held their positions, covering every guard and officer. "Do not move," Doyen said, in perfect Viraxian language. Hannah had taught him the phrases during the approach. Cracksthal mandibles clicked in anger. "You cannot be here." "This is impossible." "Yet here we are," Doyen replied. He gestured at the command staff. "Order your fleet to pull back from Sector 7. "I will do no such thing," Cracksthal snarled. Duyun nodded to Yunji. She shot the guard commander through the eye. The body collapsed. "Order your fleet to pull back," Doyon repeated calmly. Cracksthal hesitated. He was a warrior. He had fought in 50 battles. He had never retreated from an enemy. But something about these humans terrified him. They had appeared from nowhere. They moved with perfect coordination. They showed no fear at all. "If I refuse?" Cracksthal asked. "Then we kill everyone in this room and move to the next command station," Doyon said. "We have already destroyed 3 of your facilities. We can continue indefinitely. Your choice is simple. Retreat now and live. Or refuse and watch your entire command structure collapse." It was a bluff. The team could not actually continue indefinitely. They were exhausted. Their supplies were low. One more operation like this would probably be impossible. But Cracksthal did not know that. He saw 6 humans who had done the impossible. He saw soldiers who moved like ghosts and killed without hesitation. He saw something he did not understand. "I will order the retreat," Cracksthal said slowly. "Good decision," Doyon replied. "Do it now." Cracksthal entered commands into the tactical display. Orders went out to the Viraxian fleet. Ships that had been preparing to attack coalition positions instead turned and moved to new coordinates. "Now what?" Cracksthal asked. "You cannot escape. My soldiers will hunt you." "Watch," Doyon said simply. Minjay pressed a button. Throughout the station, small charges detonated. They were not large enough to destroy anything, but they knocked out power to critical systems. Lights went dark. Life support stuttered. Communications failed. In the chaos, Spec for Unit 7 vanished. They moved through corridors filled with confused Viraxians. They climbed back through maintenance shafts. They reached the airlock they had entered through and left the same way they came. By the time station power was restored, they were gone. Cracksthal searched the security footage and found nothing. The humans had erased all evidence of their presence. It was as if they had never been there at all, except for the dead guards and the fleet orders that could not be reversed. Back at Coalition Base Sentinel, strange things were happening. The Viraxian offensive had suddenly stalled. Enemy ships retreated from contested zones. Supply lines that had been secure were now being attacked by unknown forces. General Crix reviewed the intelligence reports with confusion. "Something is wrong," he said to Admiral Quintara. "The Viraxians are acting afraid, but we have not done anything to cause this fear." "Perhaps the human Marines are more effective than we realized," Quintara suggested. "No," Crix said firmly. "I have watched the humans fight. They are excellent soldiers. But this is different. The Viraxians are not retreating from battlefield defeats. They are retreating from terror. Something is hunting them." Captain Juan Park heard these discussions and said nothing. She received daily encrypted reports that told her the truth. Spec for Unit 7 had destroyed ammunition depots, killed high-ranking officers, hacked communication networks, and spread paranoia throughout the Viraxian forces. The enemy was starting to see human demons everywhere. They pulled troops from the front lines to search for infiltrators. They executed their own soldiers who reported seeing ghosts. Their command structure was falling apart, and the coalition had no idea any of this was happening. G1 sometimes wondered if this was right. Should they tell their allies about the Special Forces operations? Should the coalition know what humanity was capable of? But those were not her decisions to make. She was a liaison officer. She followed orders, and her orders were clear. Say nothing. In a small ship drifting in the dark between star systems, Doyan and his team rested. They had completed their primary objectives. Now they were preparing for the next phase. Where do we go next? Yenji asked, cleaning her rifle. Doyan looked at the star map. Deep in Vroxian space, a massive fortress housed the Supreme Command. It was considered impenetrable. Thousands of soldiers guarded it. Multiple fleets protected its location. There, Doyan said, pointing at the fortress. The others looked at each other. Then they smiled. These were not normal smiles. These were the smiles of hunters who had found worthy prey. Impossible target, Minjay said cheerfully. Siagan agreed. They were Specfer. The impossible was what they did best. General Crick stood before the assembled coalition forces at Base Sentinel. Behind him, tactical displays showed the current battle lines. For the first time in months, those lines were stable. The Varaxine advance had stopped. We launched the counteroffensive in 6 hours, Crix announced. Human forces will lead the assault. The rest of us will provide support and secure captured territory. Commander Timan Choi nodded. His Marines were ready. They had been holding the line for weeks, waiting for this moment. We will break through their defenses, he promised. The attack began at dawn, station time. Human Marines pushed forward in coordinated waves. They expected heavy resistance. Instead, they found chaos. Varaxian defensive positions were undermanned. Communication systems malfunctioned. Officers gave contradictory orders. Entire units retreated without fighting. It was as if the enemy had already been defeated before the battle began. Sergeant Minho Bay led his squad through a captured Varaxian outpost. Bodies lay scattered everywhere, but they had not been killed by marine weapons. Look at this, he called to Lieutenant Su Jinyun. She knelt beside a dead Varaxian officer. Single shot through the head, perfectly placed. The wound was precise, surgical. This was not combat, she said quietly. This was execution. Throughout the outpost, they found similar scenes. Guards killed silently. Explosive charges placed with inhuman precision. Computer systems hacked and corrupted. Someone had been here before them. Someone had systematically dismantled this facility from the inside. Report this to command, Minho ordered. Similar reports came from other units. Everywhere the Marines advanced, they found evidence of sabotage and assassination. The Varaxians had not just retreated, they had been terrorized into retreat. In a captured command bunker, Private Daono found something strange. Bodies of 3 Varaxian generals, all killed the same way. But on each body was a small mark. He took a photo and sent it up the chain. When Admiral Quaintara saw the mark, her skin changed color with distress. It was a human military insignia, but not one she recognized. She immediately called Captain Jiwan Park to the command center. What is this symbol? Quintara demanded, showing her the image. Giwan looked at the screen. Her face remained calm, but inside she felt a moment of concern. Specfer was not supposed to leave signatures. Someone had made a statement. I need to make a call, Jiwan said carefully. No, General Crick said, his voice hard. You will explain now. What has humanity deployed without informing the coalition? Gi-1 looked at both of them. She had been keeping secrets for weeks. Part of her was relieved it was finally over. Specfer, she said quietly. Special Forces operations. Explain, Quaintara ordered. Human military has multiple tiers, Ji-1 began. Regular soldiers like Commander Choi's Marines are what you have seen. They are excellent warriors, but they are not our most elite forces. Go on, Crick said. Specfer units are selected from the top soldiers in our military. Less than 1 in 10,000 qualify. Their training is classified, but I can tell you it is beyond what most species consider possible. They specialize in operations that conventional forces cannot accomplish. What kind of operations? Quintara asked. Infiltration, assassination, sabotage, psychological warfare. They work in small teams, usually 6 to 8 members. They operate behind enemy lines for weeks or months at a time, and they leave no trace. The room was silent. Finally, Crick spoke. You sent these soldiers into Varaxian space without telling us? Yes, Giwan admitted. We needed to know if the Coalition could be trusted with our full capabilities. This was a test. A test. Crick sounded angry. We are allies. Are we? Giwan asked. 3 years ago, humanity was alone. Now we fight beside you, but we have learned to be careful about who we trust. Spec for operations were running parallel to the conventional war. If they failed, only humans would be blamed. If they succeeded, the Coalition would benefit without knowing the risk we took. Quintara's tentacles moved in a pattern that indicated deep thought. How many of these units do you have? That information is classified, Juan replied. But I can tell you that you have only seen one team's work. There are others. Show me their training, Crix demanded. I want to understand what makes them so dangerous. Giwan accessed her secure files and displayed footage on the main screen. The Coalition officers watched in disbelief. Spec for candidates undergoing selection trials that would kill most species. Humans running for days without rest. Humans surviving in environments with no food or water. Humans learning to move in complete silence. Humans mastering every weapon system ever created. Then came the advanced training, infiltration techniques, assassination methods, psychological manipulation. The humans were taught to become invisible, to think like the enemy, to strike from impossible angles. This is not training, Quintara whispered. This is transformation. You take soldiers and turn them into something else. We turn them into what we need them to be, Guan said. The galaxy is dangerous. Humanity learned that lesson very early. If we want to survive, we must have weapons that others do not expect. At that moment, alarms blared throughout the base. A massive encrypted transmission had been detected from deep in Varaxian space. The source was the Supreme Command Fortress, the heart of enemy operations. What is happening? Crix demanded. Jiwan checked her secure channel. A new message waited. Package delivered. Mission complete. Requesting extraction. She looked at the Coalition officers. Spec for Unit 7 has reached the Supreme Command. Whatever they have done, the Varaxians know it. The transmission was decoded by Coalition intelligence. It was a message from the Varaxian Emperor himself. A request for immediate ceasefire negotiations. The Coalition Council gathered in emergency session. No one could believe what they were hearing. The Varaxians were surrendering. Not the whole empire, but they were offering major concessions in peace terms. How? General Crix asked. We have been winning battles, yes, but not enough to force this kind of surrender. Ambassador Haijin Li spoke from Earth. Spec for Unit 7 infiltrated the Supreme Command Fortress 3 days ago. They reached the Emperor's war chamber. Instead of killing the leadership, they delivered a message. Surrender, or every Varaxian officer would die in their sleep. Then they left. Quintara said in disbelief. They reached the most secure location in Varaxian space and just left. Yes, Haijin confirmed. They wanted the Varaxians to know that nowhere is safe, that human special forces can go anywhere, kill anyone, and vanish without trace. It was not about winning a battle. It was about winning the war through fear. Crick slammed his fist on the table. This is dishonorable. Warriors should fight in the open. War is not about honor, Haijin replied calmly. War is about winning, about protecting your people, about making the enemy too afraid to fight. Specfer understands this better than anyone. An unmarked ship docked at Base Sentinel that night. 6 soldiers in black armor emerged. They moved through the corridors without speaking. Coalition personnel watched them pass with a mixture of awe and terror. Major Doyon, Han and his team walked into Captain Jiwon Park's office. They looked exhausted. Their armor was scarred and damaged, but their eyes were alert, focused. Mission accomplished, Doyen said simply. I know, Jiwon replied. The entire galaxy knows now. Doyon smiled slightly. Was that part of the plan? Actually, yes, Jiwon admitted. Command wanted the Coalition to understand what humanity can do. You just made that very clear. The Varaxians will talk, Doyen said. They will tell stories about human ghosts who walk through walls and kill from shadows. Other species will hear those stories, good Jiwon said. Let them hear. Let them understand that attacking humanity means more than fighting soldiers. It means fighting shadows, fighting fear itself. In the Coalition Council chamber, the delegates debated long into the night. Some wanted to condemn humanity for the secret operations. Others argued that Specfer had saved countless lives by ending the war quickly. Finally, High Counselor Vexther spoke. We cannot judge them by our standards. Humans are different. They fight differently. They think differently. We asked them to help us win a war. They did. The method may trouble us, but the result is undeniable. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. They had thought they understood human soldiers. They were wrong. They had only seen the surface. Beneath that surface was something far more dangerous. Something that moved in darkness and struck without warning. Something that turned war into an art form. The galaxy had feared human soldiers. Now it feared what it could not see. The Varaxian Emperor appeared on the holographic display at the Coalition Peace Conference. His massive insectoid form filled the screen, but something had changed. The arrogance was gone. In its place was something the Coalition had never seen in a Varaxian before. Fear. We accept the terms, the Emperor said through his translator. The outer systems will be returned. Our forces will withdraw. We will pay reparations. Ambassador Haijin Li sat at the negotiating table, her face neutral. Beside her, High Counselor Vexther and the other Coalition leaders looked stunned. They had expected months of negotiation. Instead, the Varaxians were surrendering after 2 days. Why? Admiral Quintara asked bluntly. Your forces still outnumber ours. You could continue fighting. The Emperor's mandibles clicked slowly. We can fight soldiers. We can fight fleets. We can even accept defeat in honest combat. But we cannot fight ghosts. We cannot fight enemies who appear from nowhere and vanish without trace. We cannot sleep knowing that phantoms walk our corridors and kill our leaders at will. General Crix leaned forward. You are surrendering because of fear, not fear of death, the Emperor replied. Fear of uncertainty. Your human special forces proved something to us. They proved that nowhere is safe. Not our bases. Not our ships. Not even the Supreme Command Fortress. If we continue this war, our entire leadership will be assassinated within weeks. How can an empire function when its leaders die in the dark? Haijin spoke quietly. Then you understand the message we sent. Understand, the Emperor said. Humanity does not just have strong soldiers. You have warriors who transcend normal warfare, who turn battle into something we cannot comprehend. We are insects, Ambassador Li. We are not stupid. We know when we are beaten. The transmission ended. The room remained silent for a long moment. Is this what you wanted? Vexther asked Haijin. To win through terror? We wanted to win, Haijin replied simply. Terror was merely the tool we used. Would you prefer we had sacrificed millions of soldiers in conventional combat instead? Quintara's color shifted to indicate troubled thoughts. You have changed the nature of warfare. Other species will now fear what humans might do in future conflicts. Good, Haijin said, without hesitation. Fear prevents wars. If potential enemies know what we are capable of, they will think twice before attacking. That saves lives on all sides. Later that day, Colonel Junho Kim arrived at Base Sentinel. He was a tall man with gray hair and quiet eyes. He wore a simple uniform with no insignia except a small pin that matched the symbol found on the Varaxian bodies. The coalition leaders met with him in a secure conference room. Junho sat across from them, perfectly relaxed. "Explain your organization," General Crix demanded. "What is SpecFur? How many units do you have? What are their capabilities?" "I will answer what I can," Junho said calmly. SpecFur is humanity's Special Operations Command. We have multiple units, each specialized in different forms of warfare: urban combat, space operations, deep infiltration, counterterrorism, psychological operations. The exact number is classified. "Why keep this secret from your allies?" Quintara asked. "Because we needed to test you," Junho replied. "Humanity is new to the galactic community. We do not yet know who we can trust completely. This operation served multiple purposes. It helped end the war. It demonstrated our capabilities, and it showed us how the coalition would react when they learned the truth." "You were testing us?" Crix sounded offended. "Yes," Junho said bluntly. "And you passed. You are angry, which is understandable. But you are also pragmatic enough to see the value in what we did. That tells us you can be trusted with more information in the future." Vexter tapped his claws on the table. "What do you want from the coalition now?" "Partnership," Junho said. "Humanity is willing to train special forces from other species. Not to SpecFur standards, obviously. But we can share techniques, tactics, and philosophy. In exchange, we want full integration into coalition military planning. No more surprises. No more secrets? Can other species even match your standards?" Quintara asked. "Honestly, probably not," Junho admitted. "Humans evolved on a death world. We have physical and psychological advantages that most species lack. But that does not mean others cannot learn from our methods. Every species has unique strengths. We can help you develop specialized units that use those strengths." The discussion continued for hours. By the end, a framework was established. Humanity would share some special operations knowledge. The coalition would grant humans more autonomy in military planning. It was not perfect, but it was a start, in a small ceremony that was not recorded or publicized. SpecFur Unit 7 received medals from Colonel Junho. The 6 soldiers stood at attention in their black armor. Faces hidden behind helmets. "You accomplished the impossible," Junho said. "You penetrated the most secure facility in Viraxian space. You delivered our message and extracted without casualties. You changed the course of the war. The galaxy will never forget what you did, even if they never know your names." Major Doyon Han spoke for his team. "We did our duty, sir." "Nothing more. You did far more than that," Junho replied. "You showed the galaxy what humanity truly is. Not just strong, not just brave, but capable of achieving things that others consider impossible." Later, Captain Jiwon Park met with Junho in private. "Was this entire operation planned from the beginning?" she asked. "The broad strokes, yes," Junho admitted. "We knew the coalition needed to understand our full capabilities eventually. The Viraxian War provided the perfect opportunity. SpecFur units proved their worth, and the coalition learned that humanity is more than just good soldiers." "Some of them are afraid of us now," Jiwon said. "Let them be afraid," Junho replied. "Not of us specifically, but of what we represent. The unknown. The unexpected. In a dangerous galaxy, being underestimated is deadly. Being feared is survival." At Base Sentinel, human Marines celebrated their victory. Sergeant Minho Bay and his squad drank and laughed with soldiers from other species. They told stories about battles, shared jokes, and formed the bonds that came from fighting together. None of them knew about SpecFur, Unit 7. They thought the victory came from their own efforts. In a way, it did. The Marines had held the line while the invisible war was fought in shadows. "We did well," Lieutenant Su Jin-yoon said, raising her glass. "To the 3rd Marine Division, to humanity," Minho added. The others cheered. They were proud of their accomplishments. They had every right to be high above the base, an unmarked ship prepared for departure. SpecFur Unit 7 was already aboard, heading to their next mission. There was always another mission. Another crisis that required shadows instead of soldiers. Corporal Yoonji Shin looked out the viewport at the receding station. Do you think they will ever truly understand us? She asked Doyon. No, he replied. And that is good. Mystery is a weapon. As long as they do not understand us completely, they will hesitate to make us enemies. The galaxy fears regular human soldiers, Sergeant Min Jae Kong said thoughtfully. But now they fear us more. Not us specifically, Doyon corrected. They fear what they cannot see. What they cannot predict? What might be watching them from the dark? That fear will serve humanity well. On Earth, in a classified training facility, a new class of Spec for candidates began their journey. Young men and women who had excelled in every military test, who showed not just skill, but the potential for something more. Only 5% would complete the training. The rest would return to regular forces. But those 5% would become the next generation of ghosts. The next shadows that protected humanity. Ambassador Hai-Jin Lee stood in the coalition headquarters, looking at Earth through the viewport. A delegate from another species approached her. Your people have shocked us, Ambassador, the alien said. We thought we understood humans. We were wrong. You understood part of humanity, Hai-Jin replied. You saw our soldiers, our determination, our loyalty, but you did not see the full picture. What is the full picture? The delegate asked. Humanity survived on a planet that tried to kill us every single day, Hai-Jin said quietly. We learned to hunt, to fight, to endure things that would destroy other species. When we reached for the stars, we brought that legacy with us. You saw our warriors. Now you have seen our shadows. And you still have not seen everything. What more is there to see? The delegate asked nervously. Hai-Jin smiled. Hopefully you will never need to find out. Far from civilized space, Colonel Junho Kim reviewed reports on a dozen ongoing operations. Spec for units working across the galaxy. Most would never be acknowledged. Many would never be known outside the highest levels of command. That was the point. Regular soldiers won battles. Spec for won wars. Not through force of arms, but through precision, intelligence, and fear. General Crix had been right about one thing. Humanity had changed warfare. They had introduced a new element that the galaxy was still trying to understand. The element of the invisible. The unknowable. The unstoppable force that struck from darkness and vanished like smoke. The galaxy had feared regular human soldiers. Now they feared something more. They feared the ghosts. They feared the shadows. They feared the warriors who did not exist in official records, but existed very much in the nightmares of humanity's enemies. And in the end, that fear would keep the peace far better than any army ever could, because the greatest weapon was not the one you used. It was the one everyone knew you had, but hoped they would never see. Humanity's greatest weapon was not their soldiers. It was what lurked behind those soldiers, in the dark, in the unknown, in the places where even brave warriors feared to look. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and it would not forget.